The authority may, during the currency of a lease, subcharter, interchange, or code share approval on its own volition, or on the application by the lessee or lessor, subcharterer, or party to an interchange or code share arrangement, vary, suspend, or revoke any of the terms of the condition of any of the approvals or approvals in the entirety. I was requesting if we can link it to, for the authority to be able to do that if there is a violation in the regulation, because it's open-ended for the authority to stop the agreement. Maybe you can look into that.
Thank you, Ali.
Thank you for that. Any other question? I do not see any other question in respect of the regulations. I don't know whether the legal team has anything to say about that provision in respect of Section 21 of the Act.
The authority under the Act has the powers, for lack of a better word, to vary or amend or revoke. And I think that's a good regulation because it's also giving the operator a chance to make that application when they feel like they need that to be done. So if there's a violation, yes, the authority can amend or revoke. And if the operator also wants to, for whatever reason, for it to be amended, can make an application. So that for what, we don't limit it to what circumstances will lead the authority to undertake such measures.
I think that then is what we'll leave the 4 sets of regulations at. I would like to invite my colleagues responsible for safety management regulations, personnel licensing, and airworthiness regulations to take the podium so that we can consider those regulations in that order. Safety management, personnel licensing, and airworthiness regulations.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Lois Mwangi. I'm the Acting State Safety Program Coordinator. And basically, I am presenting on the Civil Aviation's Draft Civil Aviation Safety Management Regulations 2022. The safety management regulations apply to those organizations that are required to establish and maintain an SMS. These are 5 types of organizations. That's the AOC holder, an ATO, an AMO, the Air Navigation Service Provider, and an aerodrome service provider. When we did the stakeholder engagement in June and in December, we got some feedback. And key among those was on the appointment of the safety manager. I'd like to emphasize on these regulations because they are the last. They're Annex 19 on safety management, and they are the SAPs delivered by ICAO. What I mean is that it is not, safety management is not prescriptive. It is based on the performance of your organization, and you implement and establish an SMS based on the size and complexity of your organization. So when we are auditing and doing oversight of implementation of SMS, it's based on your size and your complexity. Whatever works for Kenya Airways will not work for Yellow Wings, will not work for a balloon operator. So you need to implement your SMS based on your operations. That said and done, there was deficiency that has been brought up through our oversight system in terms of the appointment of safety manager, and thus the requirements and the need for putting in some prescriptive requirements for the appointment of this safety manager. So, after the consultations, these are the requirements that we put down, where you need to have a technically qualified person related to the product or service provided by the organization. That could be in aircraft maintenance, airport operations, flight or ground operations, airport operations, air traffic control. So this qualification could be either a degree or a diploma in the related field, or you have held or holds a license issued by the authority. Secondly, you need to have at least 5 years operational experience related to the product or service provided by the organization in the different services that are provided. Then you must have successfully completed a professional training course in safety management system acceptable to the authority. Then D is competencies to perform safety management responsibilities, that is analytical problem-solving skills, a good understanding of human factors principles, etc. So those are the prescriptive requirements that we put in for the appointment of a safety manager. There were concerns about the harmonization of these requirements across, especially for the AMO, AOC, and ATO. And we got feedback from the ATOs that 5 years was too much for them. I think also yesterday we heard from Colonel, and he said people come in and go from their ATOs. So for the ATOs, they decide, when we discussed with the inspectors in the ATOs section, and that was put to 3 years. But for AMO, AOC, Aerodrome, ANSP still remains 5 years. In addition to that, for that requirement, for the AOC and AMO, there's a requirement that they've added in their different regulations where you need to have some managerial experience. I think that was discussed yesterday, and I won't go into it. Another key area of the safety management regulations is in terms of protection of safety data and establishment of Let me see where it is. Yes. Yes, principles for the protection of safety data, where we've put in that not only the state or the SSP is required to have that in place, but even as service providers, you're required to have protection of data policies in your organization. So this is not new. This is something that was there in Annex 19 before, but we had not put it in our regulations. So when we did the review, this was added also to cover the service providers. So now with the new regulations, service providers will be required to have a data protection policy, safety data protection policy, where safety data shall only be used for safety-related purposes. And the guidance is there for protection of data is already in Doc 9859 on Chapter 7, and KCAA shall issue guidance material in the form of advisory circulars once these regulations are promulgated. In addition to that, there's also the I'm looking for it. SDCPS, that is Safety Data Collection and Processing Systems. In the regulations, that was only put for the for the state, and now this has been extended to the service provider. This is in recognition of data being the fundamental information that you need to make data-driven decision-making, which is very important in safety management. So once these regulations are out, the service providers will be required to have some a form of safety data collection and processing system. It doesn't have to be a complicated system. You could even have an Excel sheet, but in a way that you're processing the data. Because what we have seen in many operators, many service providers, is where you have your information in files. So you have your current reports in files, and they're just placed there. But that way, you're not able to process your data. You don't get any meaningful information from that, from what you collect, from the safety reports that you get. So now, this is extended to the service providers, and you'll be required to have a means of collection and processing of that of that safety data. And I'll repeat, it does not have to be a system that you buy. You can use an Excel sheet. You can use the Microsoft applications that are there. So it is very performance-based. We are looking at what are the outcomes. Are you getting meaningful information from whatever it is, safety reports that you get? So those were the key issues in this regulation. And I think I will allow moderator. Am I taking questions or after Pell? Okay. Okay, yeah.
Good morning. Thank you very much for your very good presentation on safety. Again, my name is Professor Samir from Technical University of Kenya for record-keeping purposes. I wanted to add something. I saw a place where the head of safety shall hold or have a license, Part A, Part B, and then Part C is something that caught my attention. Must have successfully completed a training in safety management systems. I thought it would be also good to add and reliability risk analysis as well, as an addition to that. Yeah, because it's
This for 8 years.
yes.
It is very small.
Yeah, but exactly, I understand. But just to a basic level, I do get your point. But just to add the reliability analysis, not to a very higher depth, but that's something to look at. And then one extra addition was even this whole concept in safety management systems, you also have HAMS, health and usage monitoring systems, where you can model the integrity of aircraft systems remotely via sensors and other things. So that is something they also to look at, given now the influx of newer technologies in the field. So that is my comment. And I really like the way you presented. You are very eloquent, and it was very well machined. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Samir. Just quickly to add on to that, yes. What you mentioned on reliability analysis is covered within the SMS training. So we don't want to overburden and give too much info, but it is covered in the SMS training. And then in terms of the hazard and the reporting, that comes under the flight data monitoring system, and that is at the moment is for aircraft above 27,000 kgs. So it is covered under the operation of aircraft regulations. Is it operations of aircraft or ALCN admin? Ops, yeah, ops of aircraft, yes. So it's covered under, because that is very specific to the FDM program.
Good morning. My name is Kanol Ali from 99th Flying School. This is in regards to the head of safety for ATOs. And from the requirements given in terms of qualifications, we are basically talking about a flying instructor. The experience, you said, with the ATOs, you have decided 3 years will be adequate, whereas the AOCs and AMOs, maybe 5 years will be good. We appreciate that consideration. But just as we stated yesterday, the staff in flying schools are there on a temporary basis. They are there on transitional basis, basically an hour building exercise. We are stepping stone, so to speak, and therefore, Madam, with due respect, 3 years experience. We don't mind everything else. Of course, a license will be good enough. We'll give them safety training. That is something which we can do. It's within our capacity. But having someone with 3 years experience to serve as head of safety will be asking for too much. Just as we agreed yesterday, the CFI will now only require 1 year experience. We ask the same of you, bearing in mind that this is a new annex. We are starting this afresh. Hopefully with time, we can revise this if we'll be around any longer. Then we'll get to 2 years, 3 years. Eventually, we don't mind if we slowly crawl and walk and run until we get to a point where we'll be asking for people with 7 years experience. But for the time being, just as we did with the CFI and all the other key post holders, we request that you reconsider this and scale it down to 1 year. Thank you.
Thank you, Kanalali, and that is noted. I think we will harmonize with the ATO coordinators, and if it is accepted for 1 year with the rest of the post holders, then we will have to align with what you decide with the ATO coordinator. But that said and done, Kanalali, I just want to mention, we have seen even in other places where CFIs, instructors, people have the passion to train, and they decide to be instructors for X number of years, like yourselves and Major. And these are the kind of passions and things that we need to develop so that we don't have people being CFIs to just gain hours. They're there because they have a passion to train and they want to impact their knowledge to the next generation. Something to think about.
Thank you very much. Just to add on what my colleague has said, Kanoladi, I just want to ask you a question, Lois. If you are just freshly trained, and everybody asks you for experience, will you ever get experience? Everybody says we want 3 years. Everybody says I want a year. Even the civil aviation employs young people. Let me say greenhorns. And they are given opportunity to become inspectors. We have seen them grow. What I'm saying, flying schools is a point of entry for anybody to get that experience. So if nobody gives you any chance to get the experience, where will you get it from? I think schools is an entry point where somebody who is freshly trained can have an opportunity to grow. And I request we entirely remove the idea of number of years of experience from flying schools to allow young people who want to grow through that system. All they need to do is get them good training and probably give them a chance. And I think I'm reconsidering even the 1 year. That's what I'm saying. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Major. I think we will continue that discussion with the ATO coordinator. I'm sure Sheila is listening and taking note of that.
Yeah, maybe I just want to make a comment about experience. Experience in aviation is very, very important, especially issues of safety. And here we are only talking of one person to be the head. We are not saying about other people who may be involved in safety. So when you talk about a person who has adequate knowledge, experience, and a person who can be able to make decisions, be able to analyze data, to be able to see what is going on within the organization. So when somebody is new, he has to learn the scenarios that are there in aviation. So if somebody has got X number of years in aviation and he wants to become the head of safety, it's a person who has already gone through and has knowledge of the practical issues that are going on within the aviation system. That is both in personnel, also in equipment, and also in the training. So where safety issues are being raised. So I believe that if we ignore experience, we may be going through a lot of difficulties, lack of understanding of the issues that are coming up. So safety is important and should be allowed to be given to the people with the adequate knowledge and experience to be able to make decisions and to be able to determine the progress of things that are going on within our training institution or any other institution that needs aviation. Thank you.
No need to add on that. That was well said.
Thank you. I've been making some comments on this safety reporting, but I discovered that probably I'm making it at the wrong fora. Maybe this should be the right place. This regulation is one of the shortest set of regulations, thank God, but, and you say it's performance-based, it's not prescriptive. A good point, too. But I think we need to prescribe a few things, you know. When a report is made, and I'm now talking from experience, we've been making reports and reports. The reports of incidents and accidents which have been made to the authority must be the largest archives that the KCAA holds. Yet, we have not seen that loop closed. And the closure of that loop is the reason for having this regulation, set of regulations, is so that we get an improvement in safety standards. I think yesterday I was making that comment to AMO, and I made a quip to AOC. But I think this is where the root cause is, you know. Whilst you are not trying to run, you're running away from prescription, but you need to prescribe to the authority and tell the whole world what the authority will do with that information. So far, you go to town about data protection and all that, and that's very good. So why don't we also prescribe what that data will be used for in the interest of safety? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Engineer Pot. On that question or comment, indeed, we do have a database of the reports that we have received from the service providers. And these reports, first of all, I'd like to mention that the investigation obligation lies with the service provider. That's under these regulations. I believe it's Regulation 12. The obligation of investigation under an SMS is given to the service provider because you know yourself, you know your operations, you know what are the issues, and you come up with the root cause and the mitigations for whatever occurrences that have happened. Secondly, what we do at the authority is, once we get these reports, it's assigned to different inspectors, and the inspectors do review your mitigations and what you've given as root cause. I agree with you, there has not been feedback, and it's two-way. First and foremost, our inspectors, when they receive these reports, because we have a system, we have an online system, and there's a way that it's assigned to them. Once they go through this, and they do an email to the safety managers and ask them, please upload the report of this so that we can review it. Most of the time, 70% of the time, we do not get feedback. We have reports as far back as 2017 that have not been responded to. That's number one. Secondly, and the reports that we do go through, the inspectors go through and give a close and satisfactorily close. There has been a hitch, and that is something that we are working in, because the system that we have, the service providers told us they are not able to see the comments that we put there, but the inspectors actually do comment, and the managers close these reports. So that we are working on. We are currently doing an automation of our processes, and that is one of the modules that is being upgraded to sort out that hitch where the service provider is not able to see what the inspector has commented and given. But we do process those, and we do contact. I believe some of you, we have contacted you, emailed you. Some of these reports, actually, we have called people to our offices, our meeting rooms, and we ask them to explain the nature of an occurrence, and it is processed. And secondly, the last part where you say you have not seen feedback in terms of any report presented. We have had the issue of data protection, and we have done the policy now. So in terms of publishing this and putting on our website is something that we are looking forward to doing. So it is in progress, but I appreciate your comments. Then the one that was mentioned yesterday when Madam Keter was presenting on AMO, those ones are hazards that are required to be sent to the aircraft manufacturers. So those ones are different, and I believe it's really important for the manufacturers to get these hazards that we encounter so that they're able to use that data to make their products better. Yeah.
You realize we really do not want to dwell so much on the issues, eh? We want to manage time.
Safety, we must dwell on.
We want to manage time, so kindly limit the interventions.
Thank you. I get you. And I understand the problem. And I'm not saying this is not being done. But if you look at the regulation, why does it prescribe that the, the reports may be forwarded to the OEM by the authority? That doesn't even need to be in the regulation, but it is there. The most critical thing, and other authorities, you'll find, if you go to the US, the UK, and all these others, at the end of all these things, there will be either a safety bulletin or something, at the end of it, which now comes to the industry. It is desensitized. It doesn't say Air Kenya had an accident and did this. It's desensitized. But it says, this type of aircraft, you know what I mean. I think the airworthiness people know what I mean. That doesn't come out. And I'm saying it doesn't come out because we have not made it mandatory. It's not in the regulation. So the KCAA being busy, they have chosen the easier route. So let's put it here so that it becomes part of the system of safety. If you don't close that loop, we don't even need the safety department.
I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. And to answer you, in terms of that bulletin that you're asking for, and that is what I said, we have been asking you to give us feedback. We are not getting it. So if there isn't that feedback from the service provider to the authority, we cannot just come and say root cause was, it will be just generic. It will be runway excursion. Yet there were issues. So there's that. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. I see. So safety managers you've had, and it is there. It is there actually in the advisory circular. It's there. Gen 030, it is there. So safety managers you've had, if you don't respond within a certain time, yeah, so well noted, but it is covered under advisory circular.
Hello. Just to manage ourselves, let's limit our intervention 2 minutes. I have a question from that corner and another one here. Then a third one from there, then we move on. We really need to get moving. Let's discuss regulations. I know we have issues that probably things are not working well when we engage with the CA. We will create forums for that. We are picking also things that we need to deal with out of this engagement. But as you realize, this is the first regulation for day 2, and we are on the fifth regulation for the day. So we are really behind time. So one question from that point, then him, and then we'll answer them at once.
Okay, thank you. I will be shorter. My name is Umar Isa. I am safety manager of DLCOEA, Desert Locust. Okay, first I will start with thanks and apologize. Thanks for the KCAA for make the whole regulation in one discussion. I worked to Sudan Civil Aviation 7 years old, and I don't see the whole regulation in one package. This is make more harmonize of the regulations. When you have the issue in, for example, in AOC and airworthiness, this can be solved in one place. And for the safety also and the accident investigation, because many of report is in between, they also solve and harmonized in that way. And apologize because I am new appointment of the safety manager. I not send it that via email to you. Because of that, I think my comment is maybe good for. Number one, about Regulation 9.3, speak about an international general aviation operator conducting operation of large and or turbojet aeroplane. And this regulation returned to the operation of aircraft general aviation aerodrome, or Annex 6, Part 2, Section 3. In this regulation, really no definition, because the SMS should have definition of that one to be put it in this regulation. The general aviation large aeroplane should be defined here also, to be clear. This is first one. Second one, new standard, put it in, if possible, in 8, in 9 also, about a small organization, because a small organization like my organization is not like the bigger organization. To be in line with the 9 to be the size and complexity of the service provider. We have the, for example, the operation and the approved maintenance organization also. This difficult to be in 2 positions. We like the AMO regulation here, number 22B, which said that one or more of the above position may be combined subjected to approval to the authority. It may be combined the 2 positions of the, like the ICAO also, the document 9859, speak about the small organization, and also the industry practice, like CAP 1059 from UK and FAA AC circular number 12092B. My third comment about the second schedule, 1.2.1. Speak about the external organization where there is a SMS interface. Okay? This I don't found it in the Annex 19, second edition. This topic is not find it. I found it in ICAO SMS manual, document 9859.9.3.5.15. And this regulation is nice, but I think it is not now to be implemented, because it is need more mature system, more data analysis, more what we said, more data collections. And to do that, the service provider should have cost and also very challenge to do for the outside contractor. Because of that, I hope this will be omitted or for future being involved, I think. Also, the numbering is not correct at that, because you have double 1.2.1, okay? My last comment about general. I see here in this regulation, the safety in second schedule 1.3, they called the key post called safety manager. But for example, in the ATO 181H, it is called head of safety. And in AOC 13.2E called head of safety. But here also in AMO, which applicable for me also, is 2021 is called safety manager. You need to harmonize that in all regulation. Decide it, is a safety manager or head of safety? Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to just pick your brain a bit. Will the authority consider, or rather, as you can see, technical, first I wanted to make a correction. The technical qualification, you mentioned it was either a degree or a diploma, right? But a technical qualification, even from the annexes, it's mentioned it's a qualification that requires licensure and recurrent competency checks to be maintained. So that means it's either an aircraft maintenance engineer license, an FO license, a pilot's license, or a cabin crew member license. So those are the current technical qualifications that the authority currently oversees. So they go hand in hand. An engineer would need licensure. Also an FO with training would still need licensure. Cabin crew, the same thing, to get a technical qualification. So that was a correction I needed to make. With that in mind, many people have addressed the issue of the long experience requirement. I wanted to maybe pick your brain. Would the authority consider OSHA training in lieu of the SMS training that is currently done, but also concurrent with someone having a technical qualification held probably for 1 year or more? Would that count as experience in aviation, along with the SMS training or OSHA training? The other thing would be, yes, let's say somebody who's been working in an aviation department, in flight operations, engineering, all that, they're regularly involved in audits and all that. Would that, and hence a shorter experience need, along with training, would be sufficient for them to probably carry out larger tasks of managing safety in the organization? Would you consider that?
Thank you. Good morning. Mine will just, it has been mentioned. Maybe the option, I think the industry service providers, I think the elephant in the house that we are trying to avoid is the cost implication of having a resident expert handling safety, even for a small organization. So as the authority may be considered, because in all sectors, sometimes if it is difficult to have an expert resident, then you can even get from a pool, an agency that provides that service, like the auditing firm, for example. You cannot have an auditor, then you can get from there, or a lawyer, you get from a law firm. So I think we are at that level, but we really have to consider, pooling resources as an industry, whereby even in terms of SMS, you can maybe have somebody coordinating SMS. You might not be having all that expertise, but if you have an agency that can provide that and you engage, then you will have met that provision. I think that is the way to go. Even in terms of, I was seeing the issue of flight planning requirements and whatnot. I think we should be going to that level, whereby if you have an agency that can handle that with all that expertise, dispatcher and whatnot, you can engage, and then you meet the requirements. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll start with the comments from the safety manager from DLCO. Indeed, I've engaged with Desert Locust before, so I'm surprised you have a new safety manager. I haven't noticed that you've changed. But your question was on international GA and in terms of size and complexity. And I assure you, safety oversight will be based on your operations, will be based on your size and complexity. So be assured, and that has happened when we do our safety oversight. We will not ask you to do things that are overarching. And in a matter of fact, you present whatever it is you want to do in safety in your SMS manual, and we accept it. We accept whatever procedures you put in there, and we oversight you based on your procedures. So be assured of that. In terms of AMO and AOC coming together, that is acceptable, and I think it has been done before. Safety manager can handle both AMO and AOC. The IGA that you mentioned is here in terms of, because ICAO deals with international operations. Here in Kenya, I'll be honest, I have not come across anyone who's doing IGA per se. Most of the people who are doing international operations end up falling under an AOC. So that is something that not identified in our operations. The double numbering, I'll look at it. Thanks for that, bring it up. Then there was the issue of the naming, head of safety, safety manager. The nomenclature does not matter. It's the role. I said SMS is performance-based. Whether you want to call him director of safety, chief of safety, safety manager, you know, CEO of safety, it's the role. What role are they playing, and are they achieving those outcomes? And I believe the same has been done before, where even some airlines have a director of safety, and we have accepted them as the safety manager. For us, for these regulations, we put it as safety manager in alignment with Annex 19. Then come to the question of OSHA. We are not dealing with occupational safety and health. We are more on aviation safety. So OSHA actually has a different regulation, a different entity that is oversighting OSHA. So that is not relevant. And even the training you get under OSHA is totally different from aviation safety, because there's a framework for aviation safety. There are the 4 components and the elements. Then in terms of licenses, that has been covered. I think it is there, where we say you can have degree, diploma, or a license. So it's covered. And remember, we are not only talking about flight operations, AMO. There's air traffic service. There's the aerodrome operator, you know? So they can have a degree, or they could have a license. So we are covering all the operations. You could have someone who's undergone a Bachelor of Science in Aeronautical Engineering, very well trained, very technically qualified. So you cannot deny that person, and they can play and do the safety roles. So that's a consideration that we give. In terms of experience, I think acting DASA covered it very well. Experience is required because you're doing safety analysis. You need that experience. You need to understand, and so that you come up with the right root cause, the right mitigation actions. We cannot just say someone who's been flying for 6 months, come and be the safety manager. How will you come up with those mitigations if you've never experienced some of these things? Then in terms of outsourced resources that has been brought out by the colleague, I have not seen any of the service provider who've talked about outsourced resources, because safety is really huge. There's a lot to be done in that safety office. And and even the ones who had like someone who is just contracted, they have realized that there's a lot more to be done in the safety office than just reporting incidences and following up on safety meetings. So most of the service providers actually have a dedicated safety manager. So I have not seen that being a problem. And I think I've covered the questions. Thank you very much for the engagement.
Thank you, Lois. We'd like to go through the personnel licensing regulations. So I'll invite the manager personnel licensing and the team of inspectors to present the personnel licensing regulations.
Yes, good morning all. My name is Julius Zioka, Manager Personnel Licensing, Kenya Civil Aviation Authority. I'm accompanied by my colleagues, Mary Keter, that is Manager Airworthiness, and we have Alois Lumoto from Airworthiness, and the Chief Licensing Officer Exams, James Mochemi. There were some issues that were raised some times back by KCAA, that's Kenya Air Operators Association. Then the Air Direct, Connect, and ASK concerning Regulation 128 on a certificate of release, Regulation 130 on some type of errors necessary duration to do with the validity, and Regulation 125. Then some other issues were raised by AMREF on OPC as compared to IR renewals, where currency is 6 months and IR is 1 year, which of course is administrative. Then we had issues, Regulation 53, 63, and 80. Then we also had some issues to do that were raised by farmland on crop spraying and the issue of area work. Those are some of the critical issues that have been input as far as personal license is concerned. Therefore, we managed to address some of those issues, and then from there, I want to give my colleagues, it's good into two sections. Part one is going to be presented by James, and part two is going to be presented by Lumoto. And we'll be here to assist as much as possible so that at the end of the day, we're able to address all those issues. Thank you. James, welcome.
Good morning. My name is James. I'm from Personnel Licensing, and I will go through the matrix that, the matrix of changes that we have received. As the manager has put it, we received comments from farmland. There was a query about validation that I will talk about. There was some issues that were brought about by Engineer Port, Captain Peshavaria, somebody called Tony Malala, Vincent Oduor, on various issues, some of them touching airworthiness, some of them touching personnel licensing. And we also had something from the AATO that came up in November about examinations, and something from ATSEP on the wordings and their schedule, plus somebody anonymous who talked about issues of pregnancy, and I will talk about those issues. So I'll run through those issues. The matrix is right in front of you. Most of the issues here right in front of us about definitions or what we call interpretations in Regulation 2, and some of them are typos. There was a comment also we received. Somebody queried why we use the word license that ends with NSE and not NCE, and we amended all the regulations to have the license end with NCE. As you can see there, whatever is highlighted. So if I may continue. So most of these are on typos. A few of them are on airworthiness that will be handled by Alois. So the first one that I want to talk about here that we tackled was regulation number 12 that deals with the pregnancy. The regulation reads something that an applicant should inform the CA of decreased medical fitness or confirmed pregnancy. And somebody felt that decreased medical fitness should not be equated to confirmed pregnancy, as pregnancy was felt not to be a decrease in medical fitness, and we removed that statement. And so we are talking about just decreased medical fitness. And then over in Regulation 188, we will talk about issues of pregnancy aside as part of the medical. So that Regulation 12 was reading that a license holder shall inform the authority of confirmed pregnancy or any decrease in medical fitness of a duration of more than 20 days. So we removed the issue of confirmed pregnancy from that. That bit has been deleted. I'll go straight to Regulation number 23. 23 will be handled by Alois. I will move to Regulation number 26 that talks about examinations. The AATO back in November 2021, when we had a meeting here, felt that we should not carry the requirements that we have had in the technical guidance materials into the regulations, especially as far as the passing of examinations is concerned. So we have, in the current draft that has been released, I must admit that it is still existing there, but it is something that has been considered. We have sat down, we have talked, and we have agreed that we will not carry this into the regulations. It will remain as TGMs, and it will still remain for discussion. In fact, you can see the comment there says that as the ATO requested this clause to be deleted, KCAA has accepted the request. The clause deleted from the draft regulations will be maintained in the TGMs, and discussions on the issue are open so as to reach an amicable position. So the issue of 50% will, as of now, remain as part of the technical guidance materials and will not be carried into the regulations. The other issue that we had was on the validation. On the issue of the certificate of validation, FAMLAD wanted us to include agricultural pilots and firefighting as those who will qualify automatically for validation without having to sit for any examinations. However, I make reference to the ICAO Doc 9378, and the guidance we have received from ICAO talks about validation certificate for somebody with a PPL with an IR, CPL with an IR, multi-pilot license, ATPL, and flight examiner privileges. And the requirement down there, as we can see, requires them to sit for the examinations as we have continually required them. The only person who is exempted from sitting of examinations is the person for PPL. That person will just come for leisure flying for a short period and goes. But any other person who is going to carry out a commercial exercise will be required to sit for the examinations as shown in the by Doc 9379. I think there was also an issue on ATSEP, and the ATSEP had the additions to their schedule, and that has been included in schedule number 4. We have renamed it 4. Initially it was 5, now it is schedule number 4. And the wordings have been amended as per the what we received from the ATSEP team. And I think that is it from personnel licensing. The rest of it will be coming from airworthiness. Thank you.
Thank you, Bwana Mchemi. My names are Alois Odhiambo Lumutu. I'm going to present the part of personnel licensing touching on aircraft maintenance engineers. This is actually, we're just going to highlight on what was pending from our previous engagements. The first item is on Regulation 5, on the categories of licenses. And I think this one is very relevant for the engineers in the house. We have come up with 5 categories of aircraft maintenance licenses. We have category A, we have category B1, category B2, and then we have category B3, and the last one is category C. I know we all understand what the categories mean. Except for category B1, we have 4 subcategories. We have B1.1, that is a fixed-wing aircraft with turbine-propelled engine, and then B1.2, fixed-wing aircraft with piston engine. B1.3 is a helicopter with gas turbine engine, and B1.4, helicopter with piston engine. And then we've introduced B3 in response to the other jurisdiction, because we didn't have it initially. We realized that it's good to introduce it to take care of small aircrafts in Wilson Airport that are operating non-pressurized piston engine aircraft below 2,000 maximum takeoff weight. So we have covered that to take care of small aircraft operators and maintenance engineers in Wilson Airport. And then we had an issue on validation. had an issue. We had an issue on validation, and then previously we had validation for a maximum period of 6 months. There was no word whether renewable or not. Now we have introduced a 12-month one-off validation for the purpose of validating aircraft maintenance engineers. As we discussed, you remember validation is only meant to act in a stopgap measure where we need an engineer to come up and certify a maintenance where there is no available resources. And therefore, we require validation to validate the foreign experience or foreign license to make sure that he certifies a Kenya-registered aircraft. So we introduced 12 months, but one off. And then also on validation, we introduced Regulation 23(1)D. We introduced a requirement that we cannot just validate your license, but you must also prove that you have also exercised that particular privilege